In this video I'm going to show you one of my favorite features in Propellerhead Reason, the legendary mixing console. Reason has a mixing console that is an emulation of one of the most professional mixing consoles in the world, including full channel strips and the master compressor that simply makes everything sound better. Click that subscribe button to gain music superpowers. The mixer might look intimidating if you are new to music production, but it is actually laid out perfectly in sections from the top to the bottom. But it has so many features that you probably need to scroll to see it all. So here is a little extra tip for you. You can actually show or hide sections individually by using the little buttons in the bottom right corner, like this. Now I will do a quick overview of all sections of the channel strip in Reason's mixer. Section 1, the input section. Here you first have a gain knob, where you can set the input gain level of the channel. This is something you have on hardware mixing console, but actually not all DAWs has this. So you can use the gain knob even on MIDI instruments to set the level so that you have a good headroom for the rest of the signal chain. You don't want your audio to clip. There's also a button to invert the phase of the audio, which you rarely need to use unless you have phasing issues. Then you can even switch the internal routing of the audio chain by using these two buttons here. And you have a visual representation of the signal chain in this little screen below. Basically, it is the chain the audio takes through these three sections of the channel. The default is the way you see it in the mixer. First, the dynamics section, then the EQ section, and finally the insert effects section. And this final little button is used to apply the filters before going through the dynamics section. For example, if you filter the audio to only have high frequencies, you can use this button to only compress those high frequencies. A common way to use this is for de-essing vocals. Section 2, the dynamics section. This section has two features, a compressor effect and a gate effect. A compressor is used to compress the audio so that you tame the higher parts and peaks, which results in a more even sound. A gate is used to be closed until the audio level passes a threshold you set. The common practice is to use this to get rid of background noise in between sounds. Section 3, the EQ section. First, you have a button to bring out a pop-up window that shows the EQ visually, as well as the audio spectrum of the sound playing. Then you have a low-pass filter and high-pass filter that you can turn on and dial in with these knobs. Then you can turn on the EQ section, which has 4 EQs in it. The two middle ones are parametric, which means you can be more precise with how wide or narrow frequency range they will affect. The top and bottom EQs are shelves that you can turn into bell curve EQs by switching this bell button. It's easier to understand if you try it out when looking at the EQ pop-up window. Section 4, the insert effects. Insert effects are effects that are applied to single channels, and they are applied as a chain, which means that the order you add your insert effects can drastically change the end result. Common insert effects are compressors, distortion and saturation effects, guitar amps, and so on. You can easily go to your insert effect chain on any channel and adjust it by clicking on this Edit Inserts button. You can even save entire effect chains or load your own, or pre-made insert presets by using these buttons here. Section 5, the send effects. Send effects are shared effect units that you feed signal into from individual channels. This saves a lot of CPU power and makes the mixing workflow a lot more effective. Common sound effects are reverbs and delays. To the right here is where you can load up to 8 different sound effects. Then you can choose on the individual channels which sound effects you want to feed audio to, and also use these knobs to dial in how much of the effect you want. Section 6. Channel fader section. The final section is your channel faders. This is of course the most important section because here is where most of the mixing will occur. The faders themselves control the level of all individual channels. Above the fader you have a pan knob to place the sound in the stereo field, and you also have this width knob, which is a great feature because it actually controls how wide the stereo information is on the specific channel. A common mixing mistake is to have all channels on full stereo width. You should learn to use the stereo width to choose which channels you want to be more in your face and which channels should be more in the background. Below the fader, you can assign a channel group which the output will be routed to. Mixing with channel groups not only makes the mixing process much faster, it will greatly improve the end result as well, since you will be able to mix sections together. Alright, so those were the channel strips. Now to the very right is the master controls of the mixer. First you have the famous master compressor. Turn it on here and dial in the settings you want. I recommend to keep the compression up to around 4 dB. In my experience, that will keep the sound of your mix open while still getting the added warmth and character of the compressor. Below that you have the sound effects channels, where you can simply right-click here and choose Create Sound Effect, or use the Edit button to go to the sound effect in the rack for adjusting it or changing the preset, etc. Then you have the mastering chain here. Click on the Edit Inserts button to go to the mastering effects in your rack, and save or load pre-made mastering setups here. Below that you have the Send Effect Returns, which are basically mimicking the FX Send section up here. You have a level and panning knob for each send effect here, and normally I don't touch the pan of a send effect, but you could keep an eye on the level of a send effect, because if you send to it from a lot of channels, you might need to lower the level of it to avoid clipping. Finally, you have the master fader here. An important aspect here is to switch the mode of the level meter to the one you want to see. I recommend using the VU metering mode, because then you will automatically mix to a decent level instead of always being close to clipping your audio. Remember, you can always maximize the final level of your track in the mastering stage. To the right of the fader, you can control what is being sent to the control room out. For example, you can send only the vocals to the singer while you listen to the full track. But you need to have separate audio outputs on your audio interface to use this. Then you can turn on delay compensation here, which analyzes the amount of latency added by plugins you use and adjust accordingly. Here is a button to bring up the audio spectrum analyzer on the master output, which can be a good way to see how your track is balanced in the frequency spectrum. At the bottom, you have buttons to bring up the sequencer or rack in focus. There's a button to turn all channels that are muted back to not being muted, and the same for soloed channels here. And finally, there's a button to dim the audio output by 20 dB. You can get my Reason Legends pack completely for free. Simply go to my website and sign up to my VIP email list. Become a VIP. It's 100% free. Alright, I know this was a lot of information in a short while, but I just wanted to give you a quick overview of the legendary mixer in Reason. Now I would really like to recommend you to bring up the manual of Propellerhead Reason, because it is actually very well written. Then use it as a reference as you try out all features of the mixer one by one. Great! Now take action and make some amazing music. I'm Mike, giving you a quick tour of the legendary mixer in Reason, because you rock, my friends. My name is Mike, and I share my story and journey as a music composer and sound designer to inspire creative people like you. So click that subscribe button to gain music superpowers.